Imagine a world where the only copies of Doctor Who episodes exist in the BBC archives, but one day the archives catch fire. You only have time to save 100 episodes of the show from being lost forever, but which ones do you pick? That's the dilemma I face in today's video, so stay tuned to find out which episodes I would save. Hi guys, and welcome to today's video where I will be attempting the 100 episodes tag, which is a challenge to list 100 Doctor Who episodes that I would save in a hypothetical situation where almost all Doctor Who episodes got wiped out. Before I begin, I just want to thank Phil Hawkins for tagging me to do this challenge, and I also want to apologise for the clear bias that my list has towards New Who. My excuse is that I still haven't seen much of Classic Who, so there's probably a lot of really good stories out there that I'm unaware of. But anyway, without further ado, here's my list. The first episode I would save would obviously be the very first episode of Doctor Who, part 1 of An Unearthly Child. It's such an important episode, as it kick-started this nearly 56-year journey that the show has been on since, and is the very first time you see the Doctor and the TARDIS. I would only save part 1 though, as the rest of the story is basically about cavemen learning to make fire, which isn't the most exciting of plots. Places 2 to 8 I would allocate to the entirety of the Daleks. Similarly to part 1 of An Unearthly Child, I would save this story as it's important to the history of the show. We're introduced to the Doctor's number 1 foe for the first time, and had this story not had the cultural impact that it did, it's highly likely that the show would have been cancelled after just 11 episodes. I would give places 9 to 13 to The Mind Robber, partly so that an entire second Doctor story can survive, but also because I find it a really enjoyable adventure with a unique concept. Spots 14 to 17 would go to The Three Doctors. This story marks the 10-year anniversary of the show, features the first 3 Doctors interacting with each other, and has an interesting villain in Omega. It's definitely worth saving. I would give places 18 to 21 to The Ark in Space. In my eyes, this is one of the best stories that Classic Who has to offer, with a great TARDIS team, a cool setting, exciting bits, and scary bits. At number 22 is The Five Doctors. This story is a celebration of the first 20 years of the show, and not only features the first 5 Doctors, but sees the return of old companions and monsters too. It would be foolish not to save this anniversary special. In spots 23 to 26 is The Caves of Androzani. Much like with The Ark in Space, I would keep the entirety of The Caves of Androzani, as I think it's one of the best Classic Who stories. We see the Doctor at his most desperate, Sharaz Jek makes for an intimidating villain, and all 4 episodes end on great cliffhangers. Places 27 to 29 would go to The Two Doctors. Admittedly, I've yet to watch this story myself, but I've decided to put it on the list so that a 6th Doctor story could survive, and because I'm sure it makes for interesting viewing to see the 2nd and 6th Doctors interacting with one another. Remembrance of the Daleks would take up spots 30 to 33. Ace facing the Daleks with a baseball bat is fantastic. The return to Coal Hill School is welcome, and the story itself is apparently one of the 7th Doctor's best. Rounding up the Classic Who stories, the 34th spot would go to Doctor Who the Movie. Even though it's cheesy and quite Americanised, I thought I might as well put this film on the list, as it's the only major on-screen appearance of the Eighth Doctor. Moving on to New Who now, the first episode I would save from that era is obviously Rose. Much like with An Unearthly Child, this episode is important as it introduced the show to a whole new generation. It's also the first time we meet the Ninth Doctor and Rose, who are both major characters in New Who. At number 36 is Dalek. This episode reintroduced the Daleks to a whole new generation, sees Christopher Eccleston give a fantastic performance as the Doctor, and is an all-round terrific story. Spot 37 goes to Father's Day, which is definitely one of my favourite episodes. It's a heartbreaking story about trying to stop a loved one from dying that uses the show's concept of travelling through time to great effect. In places 38 and 39 is the two-parter The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances. This adventure had a cool setting in World War II London, saw the introduction of the brilliant Captain Jack, and it terrified a whole generation of kids, myself included. The final Series 1 episodes I would save is the finale, Bad Wolf, and The Parting of the Ways. This story features the Ninth Doctor's epic last stand against a whole army of Daleks, with it also serving as a snapshot of some of the British programmes that existed in 2005. Next on the list is The Christmas Invasion. This is the first Christmas special in the show's history, and is also one of the best, with it marking the first full episode of David Tennant playing the Doctor. At number 43 is School Reunion. Not only is this a really good school-based story, but it serves as a nice link between classic and New Who, with the return of the wonderful Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith. Place 44 I've given to The Girl in the Fireplace. In my opinion, this is one of Stephen Moffat's best scripts, where the past and future collide to create an emotional love story for the Doctor. In spots 45 and 46, I would have Rise of the Cybermen and The Age of Steel. I love the idea of parallel universes, and I love the Cybermen, which is why this two-parter would be one of the stories that I would save. Places 47 and 48 would go to The Impossible Planet and The Satan Pit. This story is widely regarded to be one of the best two-parters in New Who, and it's no surprise why. The setting is original, the performances are great, and the Beast and Possessed Ood are terrifying. Rounding up the first half of my list is the Series 2 finale, Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. I've decided to put these episodes on my list, first because it's awesome to see the Daleks and Cybermen face off against each other, and second, because the departure of Rose remains one of the most emotional and famous companion exits of the show. At number 51 is Gridlock. Admittedly, this story is mainly on my list to fill up space, but it's still a great episode. The story achieves a lot despite the limited sets, and I love the ending, where the Doctor tells Martha about Gallifrey. Places 52 and 53 go to Human Nature and The Family of Blood. This is, without question, one of my favourite two-parters of the show. The Doctor turning human is a brilliant idea. The Family of Blood and their scarecrows make for creepy villains, and all the main cast give fantastic performances throughout. Spot 54 goes to Blink. Obviously, this episode was always going to be on the list, as it's almost universally loved. Sally Sparrow is really likeable, the narrative is unique, and the Weeping Angels are one of the best monsters to come from New Who. Places 55, 56 and 57 on my list go to the Series 3 finale, Utopia, The Sound of Drums, and Last of the Time Lords. These episodes made me a Doctor Who fan, with all 3 episodes being extremely exciting and the Saxon Master being a brilliant incarnation of the Doctor's nemesis. At spot 58, I've put Voyage of the Damned. This story feels like an epic disaster movie to me, partly because of its length, and partly because so many people die in it. It's one of my favourite Christmas specials due to its huge scale. At 59 is The Fires of Pompeii. I would keep this story A, because it's a great historical episode that gives the Doctor a horrible dilemma to face, and B, because it features guest appearances from both Peter Capaldi and Karen Gillan, who later go on to have major roles in the show. In spots 60 and 61 is the Series 4 two-parter, Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. Quite possibly this is my favourite two-parter of the show. There's so much to love about this one. I also think it has one of the best endings to a story ever. Spot 62 goes to my favourite episode of Doctor Who, Midnight. I find this a spectacular 45-minute story that proves you don't need a large budget or many sets to create a brilliantly terrifying adventure. Number 63 is Turn Left, a really dark and extremely well-written story about what would happen to the world if the Doctor wasn't around. Places 64 and 65 would go to the epic Series 4 finale, The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. This is the Avengers Endgame of the Doctor Who world, with all the main characters of the RTD era uniting to help the Doctor face off against the ultimate foe, Davros, and a whole legion of Daleks. At 66 is The Waters of Mars. I genuinely think this is one of the best episodes ever made. The idea of there being a fixed event in the future is fascinating. The Flood are terrifying monsters, and seeing the Doctor become the Time Lord victorious at the end is quite chilling. The last Russell T Davies episodes I would save are his final episodes, The End of Time Parts 1 and 2. I find this story to be so epic, with both the Master and the Time Lords returning, and David Tennant giving a tremendous final performance as the Doctor. Spot 69 goes to The 11th Hour. This is a thrilling introduction to both the 11th Doctor and the Moffat era, and is an episode that definitely deserves to be saved. 70 and 71 on my list is the first story that Matt Smith filmed as the Doctor, The Time of Angels, and Flesh and Stone. For me, this is a really exciting adventure that develops both the Weeping Angels and the character of River Song. Number 72 is Amy's Choice. This episode is so underrated. The plot of the TARDIS team having to decide which reality is real is really creative, and the Dream Lord is a fascinating villain. In spot 73 is Vincent and the Doctor. This is another of my favourite episodes. There's a lot to like about this one, but the emotional ending alone is enough to warrant saving it. Places 74 and 75 go to the Series 5 finale, The Pandorica Opens, and The Big Bang. This perfectly concludes Series 5 and features quite possibly the best cliffhanger in all of New Who. In spot 76, we have my favourite Christmas special, A Christmas Carol. This is such a magical episode that has a unique setting, uses time travel in interesting ways, and ends with a beautiful song. Positions 77 and 78 on my list would go to the Series 6 opener, The Impossible Astronaut, and Day of the Moon. The Doctor dying in the first 15 minutes is a brilliant way to start the story, and I love how terrifying the silents are in this. The Doctor's Wife takes up my 79th spot, as it's a brilliantly creative story about the TARDIS becoming human for the first and only time. It's also cool seeing the TARDIS corridors and the 10th Doctor's console return again. At number 80 is The Girl Who Waited. I adore this episode. The main cast give fantastic performances, and time travel is used to great effect to tell a really emotional story about being left behind. Number 81 is The God Complex. This episode has an interesting setting and concept, well-written characters, and a really sad ending, where the Doctor decides to let Amy and Rory get on with their lives. Place 82 goes to the 2012 Christmas special, The Snowmen. This is another good magical Christmas special that serves as a great introduction to the character of Clara Oswald. At 83 is The Bells of St. John. I won't lie, this is another episode that I've picked more to fill up space, but it is a really enjoyable modern day thriller that introduces the version of Clara that will be sticking around for the following 3 series. Number 84 on my list would go to The Rings of Akhaten, mainly for the fantastic score this episode has. The setting is visually stunning too, with Clara earning her companion status here. At 85 is the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor. As with the other anniversary specials, this was always going to be on my list. I love the story, John Hurt as the War Doctor, and seeing the 10th and 11th Doctors interact with each other. Place 86 would go to the 12th Doctor's first story, Deep Breath. Just like with Voyage of the Damned, this episode feels like a film to me, and I enjoy seeing the 12th Doctor gradually find himself during the episode. At number 87 is Listen. I find this to be a really inventive, small-scale story, and I particularly love the fact we never find out if there was a hidden creature in the end. At spot 88 is Flatline. There's so many fantastic ideas in this one. The TARDIS shrinking, Clara having to be the Doctor, and 2D creatures that can flatten people. It definitely deserves to be on the list. Number 89 is Last Christmas. This is probably the darkest Christmas special we've ever had, and I love the episode for it. The dream crabs were scary, Santa and his elves were hilarious, and the use of dreams within dreams was excellent. In places 90 and 91, I would have the 2-part story, Under the Lake and Before the Flood. The underwater base setting is really cool, the ghosts are creepy, and time travel is used in interesting ways. You guys are going to hate me for this, but I would give the 92nd spot to Sleep No More. I honestly think it's a good episode. The use of found footage helps it stand out, and I genuinely find it scary. At 93, I would have Heaven Sent. This episode is near perfection. It's well written and directed, has a brilliant score, and features Peter Capaldi giving a fantastic performance almost completely on his own. I would be foolish not to include this episode. Number 94 is Smile. This may not be the best episode of the show, but I think it deserves a spot on the list because the majority of the episode is spent allowing the Doctor and Bill the time to explore and to get to know each other. The 95th episode I would save is Oxygen. What I love about this episode is the perils the main characters endure. Bill almost dies twice, and the Doctor is blind for half the story. And let's not forget the chilling cliffhanger at the end, where it's revealed that the Doctor is still blind. Places 96 and 97 would go to the Series 10 finale, World Enough and Time, and The Doctor Falls. There's a lot to enjoy in this one. You've got the return of the fantastic Saxon Master, the reinvention of the Mondasian Cybermen, along with the intriguing use of time dilation, and a big fight scene at the end. At number 98, we have The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Even though I would keep this story more because it's the first time we see a female Doctor, it's still an enjoyable tale, with realistic characters and an intimidating villain in Tim Shaw. The penultimate episode I would save is Rosa. This is a hugely important real story about racism that does Rosa Parks justice and has a fantastic ending. As I've said in countless videos now, it's one of a few episodes that has actually managed to make me cry, as it was that powerful. And finally, the 100th episode of Doctor Who I would save is Demons of the Punjab, an emotional story about the consequences of the partition of India. And that's my list. Let me know what you made of my choices in the comments down below, and feel free to give your own 100 episodes list either in the comments or in a video, which you can then link to me. Once again, thank you very much to Phil Hawkins for tagging me to do this, and I must give credit to Matt from the Whoniversal's YouTube channel for starting this fantastic tag in the first place. If you want to see the episodes they chose to save, you can do so either in the cards up there or the description down below. I'm now going to tag Council of Geeks and Tom Dix, so if you guys are watching this, good luck. All that's left for me to say is thank you very much for watching this very long video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all next time. Bye!